All right, we are back at Post Wrestling, and joining us today, they are the co-executive producers, co-creators of Dark Side of the Ring. We've had the pleasure of having Evan Husney on several times, and his first tour of duty here at Post Wrestling, Jason Eisener. We've got the whole crew here as we are just days away from the season 3 premiere of Dark Side of the Ring, Thursday, May the 6th, 9 p.m. Eastern. First of all, Jason, it's great to finally speak with you about the series.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Not that it isn't a pleasant surprise, as always, to have Evan with us as well. So, Evan, it's great to have you back as well. I wanted to start off just with this, the past season, with you guys having the opportunity to look back through the Confidential Roundtable series. For you, Jason, like being so in the weeds with so many of these different episodes, what was it like to kind of go back and revisit some of these episodes and maybe certain aspects that jump out at you that at the time you're just so focused on each episode and on to the next one that this was a chance to kind of reflect on some of the past editions?
Yeah, well, even when we did the confidential thing, it was right after I shot the first block of reenactments for season 3. And so I had just finished this like crazy intense shoot and done the quarantine and everything, and then sent to Philly to do those confidential episodes. And we only had 2 days to shoot all of them. And so Evan and Conrad and I were in studio just going 12 hours, both days is nonstop. But it was cool because that had been something we always wanted to do. We always had all this like cut material. Like there's so much, like for every episode, we're interviewing everyone for like 3 to 4 hours. So you can only imagine the amount of content, we have to lose just because we got to get it down to 44 minutes per episode. So, it was just, such a cool way for us to be able to, reveal some of that material and get to, talk about the process of making the episodes and what it's kind of like for us. Like we try to, with every episode, give the viewer an experience that is kind of similar to how Evan and I have discovered the stories or how information was kind of given to us. We try our best to kind of tell the stories in a way that is like the way that Evan and I experience them. So yeah, it's just cool to kind of be able to, really give people a full perspective of what it's like to make Dark Side of the Ring.
Are you finding a lot more reaction to some of the earlier episodes the second time that they're being broadcast? Are you finding a different audience that's watching this right now than before?
Yeah, I definitely notice it on social media. People go, I think especially season 1, like kind of going back and, I've definitely seen some folks out there talk about the Gino episode, as one of our personal favorites, and the Von Erichs. I kind of felt that people kind of rediscovered that one too, and that was just awesome. And like Jason said, there's so much deleted scene material, and we've been going nonstop for the past 4.5 years or whatever, 5 years now we've been with the show, that like there's never been a chance for us to actually edit one deleted scene. Like there's never been a time period for that to occur. So this is the perfect excuse for like a team to be brought in to do some of that for us. But yeah, it's just been a blast, and Conrad's, he's awesome. And yeah, it's been, and to do it at the ECW arena too. My first time ever in the sacred grounds of the ECW arena. So that was just a cool fan thing,
A few days ago, we got the full list of subjects that are going to be tackled in season 3. I'm kind of curious about the process that you two are going through with your team as well. Like how much of a list is these whittled down from, and what are some of the more important elements that you assign to topics that get them through the whole vetting process of what finally gets the green light at the end?
Yeah, it's like after season 2 was done, and we were in talks with Vice about a season 3. I was totally blindsided by the fact that they wanted to do 14 episodes. I was kind of like, "Huh? Are you sure? 14?" Because that's pretty much like doubling the amount of episodes that had exist to that point. And so it was just like, whoa, that's a lot that we're going to have to cover, a lot of different stories. And we the last thing Jason and I want is to commit to a story, that's not deserving of that hour, that doesn't have that sort of human element, like we're all about that, making sure that any story we cover has to transcend the wrestling fan bubble. We want it to be, engrossing to other audiences as well. So the process was literally just like, okay, we had a giant list, very, very, very large list of stories, a lot of suggestions from fans, and just sort of considering each of them and like not only just who you get to talk about it, but yeah, like what is that element, that tangible human interest angle, and obviously if it can sustain the hour and if the access is there, like can you get like someone from the inner circle of said story to really, open up about it, and can you all, and also we want to mix in kind of like episodes like FMW and things like that. Like those are the ones that we want to do just because, come on, like FMW, so like things as fans that we want to see out there too. So it was kind of a mixture of both of those things. And I think like the season premiere episode, Brian Pillman, I think it was I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before that Crazy Like a Fox came out, the book.
Yeah.
Which was so great. I remember actually reading that on the road. I can't remember which season it was, but I was reading the book on the road and just like, this is an episode. Like as I was turning the pages, like it was just, I could see it come to life almost in terms of just the depth of, all the story beyond the wrestling side of it, the family stuff and the Kim Wood stuff and all that. And so we had talked about it even for season 2. And then it was like, I think after the success of season 2, it was like, okay, maybe we can get Steve Austin to like come on the show. And thankfully we were, and it seemed like everything clicked into place. And then that story is just the perfect, it checks all of our criteria. It has the blurred lines aspect. It has who are you in real life? Where does your character stop? Like that whole thing. It has the family consequences of this, and the drama behind that. And also just an unsung talent in the ring, a guy who, really should be considered one of the more, catalysts for the whole Attitude Era. So it just was like perfect. And then everything kind of clicked into place after we're like Pillman's at the top, and then everything else kind of clicked in from there.
I'm curious to know, like, now that you're coming back for a third season, you've established the brand of the show. Do you feel more freedom in being able to navigate topics that, might not necessarily garner that initial kind of spark of interest from the audience?
Yeah, I think it's definitely allowed us to be able to pick some topics that maybe, wrestling fans or wrestling historians might not know a lot about, and those are really exciting for us, because we are huge wrestling fans, and so to be able to do an episode about Johnny K9, aka Bruiser Bedlam, who was like a jobber in the WWF, but he was alleged to be involved with a police station bombing in Hamilton, Ontario, and some other crazy, he was possibly linked to, people thought he was involved with a murder as well. And so it's like this really crazy story that I've never really heard. I've heard, you've heard rumblings about the character, Johnny K9, but it's kind of like, the episodes, for us on season 2, the Herb Abrams story and the story of UWF was a big deal for us because we didn't really know a lot going into it. There wasn't a lot of information. It was hard to do research, but you heard rumors and these really crazy stories. And so, we kind of took a gamble and a chance on, investigating that story. So yeah, there's definitely there's a bunch in this season that, we probably wouldn't have gotten through the door on season 1 and season 2, but I think now we've gained a lot of trust, and the network trusts us, to pitch stories that we think that will attract an audience. And yeah.
Do you think at all, maybe not like a hard and fast rule, but do you find, Evan, through a lot of the sit-down interviews, that when you have the passage of time, that a lot of the interview subjects, they're going to be much more reflective, much more open, like A Plane Ride from Hell, for instance? It'd be very hard to do that story in 2003, 2004. Now, so many years removed, you have less connection to the company that these people, I think, can now look back on it. And with that reflection, I think, share a lot more stories. Is that a theme or pattern that you've noticed?
Yeah, it's very true. We don't typically cover that many contemporary stories, or fresh things. Actually, the Nick Gage story this season will be our most contemporary story. And it's interesting because it was a new challenge for us in that here we're kind of capturing a snapshot of Nick Gage right now, almost in a way. Like here's all the things he's been through as a wrestler and what he's able to overcome and navigate, but the story's not finished yet. And for us, it's like 9 times out of 10, the stories we tell, like there is a very clear point into which it ends, and with Nick, it's still going, and there's even other episodes I feel like in the season that have that quality. And that's interesting to us because that's a new challenge. And you're right with Plane Ride. Like I can't imagine that story being told during when it unfolded, because I think that culture has changed so much since that incident went down. And I think the way in which, as fans, we've heard about that story for so many years as like, oh, here's this like kind of funny, haha, debaucherous thing in the sky that occurred, and like it's almost out of a Scorsese movie or something. But then like you actually, with the benefit of hindsight, and like as you were saying, like there's the passage of time, we're like, whoa, actually this was a horror show. This is bad. And so yeah, I think that is interesting, and I think that does help. In terms of telling these stories, in terms of having some perspective.
What's it been like for you two trying to put the show together in the midst of a pandemic?
It definitely has its challenges, but it's at the very beginning it was like a little daunting, like to do 14 episodes and travel like all across the country and everything, but we've just, I guess, we've learned like every protocol that you probably could, like for production, and it's still always an ongoing learning thing, but it definitely caused for some challenges, and we had to, Evan and I, you on season 1 we were, and 2 we're like living together, we're constantly nonstop, like side by side, working on the show, which we haven't been able to do. Like I'm in Canada and he's in the States. So, Evan's been shooting a lot of the interviews in the States, and then I've been doing a lot of the reenactment stuff here in like Canada. And then we just have to all kind of jam as a team online, kind of
Zoom
what we're doing here, and this is, but it's worked. It's like, I was scared at first, but we really made it work.
It's really interesting because, like you were saying, Jason, like, we would be in the trenches together, like filming all these interviews and doing all the travel and just driving ourselves crazy. And this, I think it's like forced us to kind of reinvent not just the pandemic protocols, but just kind of forced us to deconstruct the process of how the show is made. Because it was very important to us, like, okay, we're doing 14 episodes. There's a middle of this global crisis, and the last thing we want, we want to be safe. That's number one, but we don't want to sacrifice the quality of the show. Like it's not worth doing. We'll wait, for when this, we don't want the quality of the show. We don't want to do interviews over Zoom. We don't want to, blah, blah, blah. We want the show to be the same show. So it was kind of like a learning process in that and doing that, but also forced us to kind of deconstruct like how we work as a team and kind of like, divide and conquer. And like, we don't have to be in the edit rooms over shoulders and, and like things like this. And it's really allowed us like kind of a new way to make the show that I think is much, I would say more, sustainable, for our own, mental, because we're just going. And I think that's been really cool for us just to kind of look at it and approach it in a different way.
Some of the topics you must have had to do interviews internationally, right? Was there much travel that you've had to do?
There is, there are some interviews we did in Japan, and Evan and I, it was like we thought, if we made a successful wrestling show, after season 2, it was like our dream was like we're gonna go to Japan and we're gonna finally get to go. And
that was the goal.
Interviews there, and but the pandemic happened, but we still wanted to tell some of these stories, so we were able to create a team in Japan that we were able to do that.
And it worked.
Yeah, we were able to like Skype in.
It worked. Like I talk about, getting probably one of the biggest legends we've ever had on the show. We had a Tony Onoki on the show, which was so cool. And, we had to do the interview remotely. We had the crew down there in Japan, and it was just like a different experience because, the way that it has to work is like he can see me, but I couldn't see him. And it was like this different experience of trying to connect, in an interview that way. But yeah, I mean, we had to do it, had to still get it. So those are the kind of the more extreme examples of things because we'd like to have been there, but yeah, we were still able to do it.
I'm sure this question, it could go beyond wrestling, but we're in the midst of A&E rolling out their series of biographies. And I don't know if either of you have gotten a chance to see any of them. I'm curious if you two can sit down and you can watch them by turning off the mindset that you guys are as documentarians, or can you flip that switch and just watch it as a regular documentary? I'm kind of interested in that process now that you're so many episodes deep, and you guys are, I think, for many people, like the standard when it comes to wrestling documentaries now.
Well, I mean, for me, it's hard to watch it, like objectively in that way, I guess. Like I've only seen the Steve Austin one because I as the time I had to check that out, which I liked. I mean, obviously it's a different type of approach to a wrestling story. Like to me, it's very, it's a biography. It's very, we don't tend to approach our episodes in a biographical sense. Maybe it's just kind of, it's more like thesis based, or more like, getting a snapshot of this person, or like a portrait of a person, rather than here's the A to B to Z to, and which is fine. It's just different styles. But that, was very heavily focused on the wrestling end of Steve's career, which as a fan, is great. But the thing that really interests me and stood out to me was just the, that there is a lot in Steve's life, more on the emotional side of things that I'm sure would have been interesting to touch on, in his career. But for me, yeah, I'm really interested to see. I have no idea what the Ultimate Warrior, I think this is where you're going with this, but the Ultimate Warrior story that they're doing. I mean, we didn't know that they were doing it, and I don't think they knew we were doing it. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, how that plays out.
Well, let me just flat out ask, like, do you feel that you can tell the Ultimate Warrior story when there is a WWE involvement, where that they honor this man once a year, and can you tell the full 360-degree story? I do feel that regardless, that people are going to be looking for your story, that it's going to cover a lot more because of the areas you can go.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like the Ultimate Warrior actually as a story is not one that I probably would have arrived at on my own as a Dark Side of the Ring episode. It was really kind of just like seeing, when we asked our followers on social media, like, what do you want to see in the upcoming season? And it was like, there was a lot of Ultimate Warrior demand, and I was kind of like, okay, what aspect of that are we really going to get into for the show? And I didn't really see it until, because, obviously there's a lot of documentaries about the Ultimate Warrior, right. And different, his career has been chronicled in many different ways. And he is a contentious figure, in wrestling. It's like, I think it's a challenge to find wrestlers outside of the company that maybe have like a positive image of him. But for me, it all kind of clicked when we met Sherry Tyree, who is Ultimate Warrior's, first wife. And then it almost kind of became more her story, Mm-hmm. And I think that's what viewers can kind of expect, is it's like, she met Jim Hellwig as he was a very, muscular guy, but he was a chiropractor. He was a guy that they were going to live a very grounded, normal life together, and they sat down, they got married. And then all of a sudden, Jim's, drive to want to be in the spotlight, took them into his professional bodybuilding career. And then of course that dovetailed into meeting Sting. And then, now they're kind of on this roller coaster ride, very fast, mind you. His rise from, Dingo Warrior and Blade Runners all the way to Ultimate Warrior is very fast in wrestling. And I think that it's kind of the experience of, as a family member, kind of being on the side of that, while also we wanted to try and tell, Jim's story in a way that just humanized him as much as possible. Because, we were getting a lot of negativity about him, from the people that we were talking to, but it's like, okay, well, there's gotta be something just more than that. I feel like, like what is the human side of him that makes him tick? And that was something that Sherry was really, interested in wanting to provide was let's ground him and talk about him as a well-rounded as an individual, and so that's kind of the way that we tried to approach it, even though I will say it was challenging.
As we wrap up here, what is the episode that each of you are most interested in seeing the audience react to this season?
Oh.
It's like I was saying when we first hopped on, I was kind of saying it's like they're not all finished yet, so like the first 4 episodes are delivered, they're ready to rock. We're actually finishing up the next 4 in the next week, I think, hopefully, knock on wood. And then we have the back 7 or whatever, 6 or 7 to really finish up. So it's unfair to all the episodes to, because we have to still see, how they wind up at the end of the day. But
yeah,
I don't know. But for me, Johnny K-9's top is high on the list because I just love those like deep cut stories where, we're learning as we're going kind of thing. Dynamite Kid, I think in particular as an episode, like I've watched the last few edits of it, it's almost done, and just, wow, very, very powerful episode. I'm very excited to see people react to that. And obviously, just it's hard not to say the Ultimate Warrior, just because of the two dueling the new Monday Night Wars with the two dueling documentaries.
Yeah. Like, and I just saw we just saw like a rough cut of the Plane Ride from Hell episode, and that.
Oh, true.
Like I put it on late, like the other night. Like I was so exhausted, and then I turned it on. And I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like
hooked. Yeah.
I was like so
gripping.
Yeah, like even just being involved, like, and then just seeing that story, I just, it had been something that we've been thinking about since the beginning of the creation of the show. It's like the
very beginning.
Whole story has always been pitched to us, so to now see it is like, oh my god! But I'm really excited right now because I'm working on it right now. Is the Grizzly Smith story, because
that's right.
If you remember when you watch Beyond the Mat, and when you hear that story that Jake the Snake Roberts tells about his relationship with his father and what happened to his sister, who was kidnapped and allegedly murdered, and Jake talks about that just for like a split moment in that documentary. But it always had fascinated us. It's always been something like, whoa, what is that story? Like the resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts or like other documentaries don't really like get into that. And that's got to be like a source of trauma that has leaked its way into the ring. And so we go into that. We go deep into that story. So that I think is going to be interesting for people to see. And also, his family, he comes from a family of wrestlers, and I think wrestling fans forget that or don't really know. His sister was Rockin' Robin, and his brother was Sam Houston, and his father being Grizzly Smith. And so, when we tell stories about the Hart family being this wrestling dynasty, and the Guerreros and the Von Erichs, but now people are going to see the Smith family story.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of the more intense episodes we've created for sure.
It is. It's definitely one of the, we always try and find the light at the end of the tunnel, or the thing that, the purpose for unearthing these wounds, with Benoit, we found that purpose in the family reconnecting and the catharsis for people who haven't had the platform to talk about it before. And I think with Grizzly Smith, it's really in that, the journey that Jake has been on and getting sober. He's been sober for 10 years now. And, Robin also is sober, and she's battled a lot of addictions as well. And they all have. And I think that their main purpose for wanting to do this, when we had the idea of like, let's do a Smith family story, they really just wanted to do it as a way to give back and to help people who have gone through similar traumas in their childhood or who have experienced addictions. It was very much about like, let's help and let's try to make some positive out of this. So that being said, it is just definitely one of the darker journeys you're going to go on season 3 for sure.
Season 3, it all kicks off with the 2-hour Brian Pillman season premiere next Thursday, May the 6th, 9 p.m. Eastern on Vice TV. Jason, Evan, it's great to sit down and chat with you guys about season 3. We wish you all the best coming up.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the success of the series already and what is ahead, because this is a wide range of subjects coming up in season 3.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.